It's Tuesday, March 11th, 2025. Elon under attack. Rubio says it's time for concessions from Ukraine. And you'll never guess which dude is back in the spotlight next on the AM Update.
Come and tell us when you disagree with our policies, and we'll have a conversation about it. Maybe don't shout it in front of 2,000 people. I can't even hear what you're saying, sir.
We did DoorDash because I wanted Doritos.
I'm really angry. I taught kids.
It's really pathetic that any member of Congress don't understand what the law says. They wrote the law.
If you have a media machine that purposefully lies to its people to maintain a political fiction, that is the hallmark of an authoritarian system.
Well, it's been a day or so for Elon Musk, the director of the Department of Government Efficiency. Don't forget, he's also the CEO of various companies like Tesla, SpaceX, and others. Of course, he's been facing attacks and protests against Doge for weeks now. He's also been facing his Tesla stores getting attacked, vandalized. Some of his Tesla chargers have been set on fire. And then yesterday, X was hacked, or at least they were the victim of the cyber attack. He says that it was broad in scope and likely originated from a very well-organized and resourced group of individuals or an entire country. Later on in the day, he joined Fox News and gave another clue about who might be responsible for the cyber attack.
Well, we're not sure exactly what happened, but there was a massive cyber attack to try to bring down the X system with IP addresses originating in the Ukraine area.
Wow, how convenient is that? Elon Musk says the origin of attack for this cyber attack against X, preliminarily, he says they originated out of Ukraine. Well, speaking of Ukraine, the United States wants to hear what concessions Ukraine would be willing to make in negotiations to end the war with Russia. It's according to U.S. Secretary of State Marco Rubio ahead of high-stakes meetings between the two nations later today. Rubio told reporters on Monday, quote, "We really want to sort of ascertain where they stand on this concessions and what they're willing to do in order to achieve peace." The discussions in the Saudi port of Jeddah comes as the relationship between Washington and Kiev is at its lowest point since Russia launched its full-scale invasion 3 years ago. Of course, the reason why they're at that point is because Vladimir Zelensky, president of Ukraine, couldn't keep his mouth shut at the White House a couple of weeks ago. Director of National Intelligence Tulsi Gabbard says she has revoked the security clearances for Democrat henchmen and the intelligence officials who claimed the Hunter Biden laptop from hell was Russian disinformation. Gabbard said in a post on X, quote, "Per the president's directive, I have revoked security clearances and barred access to classified information for Antony Blinken, Jake Sullivan, Mark Zaid, Norman Eisen, Letitia James, Alvin Bragg, and Andrew Wiseman, along with the 51 signers of the Hunter Biden disinformation letter." So that's good to see some, at least first steps towards accountability. Vice President J.D. Vance spoke at the League of Cities yesterday and explained how illegal immigration drives housing prices up.
Why costs are so high, we don't talk enough about demand. And one of the drivers of increased housing demand, we know, is that we've got a lot of people over the last 4 years who have come into the country illegally. And that's something we have to work on if we want to meaningfully reduce the cost of housing too. Now just think about this. If you allow 20 million people to compete with American citizens for the cost of homes, you are going to have a large and, frankly, completely preventable spike in the demand for housing. And that is what we, of course, have seen, because while we made it a little bit hard to build homes in this country over the last 4 years, we've also, unfortunately, made it way too easy for people to compete against American citizens for the precious homes that are in our country to begin with. Now, I'll say this, it's actually not just an American problem either. If you go to Canada, where because of their laws and regulations, they've seen a massive increase in the number of people who have come into their country. You go to the United Kingdom, you go across the world, and you see a very consistent relationship between a massive increase in immigration and a massive increase in housing prices.
There is J.D. Vance at the League of Cities Summit discussing how unchecked immigration, like what we've seen in this country for the past 4 years and much of my lifetime, how that always leads to housing affordability crises. Also at that same speaking engagement, Vance heckled a heckler.
I can tell you that, yes, of course, you're going to disagree with some of our policies. That's okay. Come and tell us when you disagree with our policies, and we'll have a conversation about it. Maybe don't shout it in front of 2,000 people. I can't even hear what you're saying, sir, but...
By the way, speaking of J.D. Vance, coming up later on Air Analysis, why the left is playing a dangerous game by willingly turning J.D. Vance into an ever-present meme. But first, another reminder. We dodged a bullet as a country. Here is former Vice President Kamala Harris speaking somewhere about something.
So we did DoorDash because I wanted Doritos. And the red carpet part was about to start. Nobody wanted to leave to go to the grocery store. So it was DoorDash. And I'm thinking about this, so I was willing to give up whatever might be the tracking of Kamala Harris's particular fondness for nacho cheese Doritos for the sake of getting a big bag of Doritos as I watched the Oscars.
Ladies and gentlemen, she almost became President of the United States. We dodged not just a bullet. We dodged a freaking neutron bomb. Teachers Union President, Grand Poobah, I like to call her, Randi Weingarten, was on MSNBC absolutely losing her mind over rumored plans from the Trump administration to sign an executive order disbanding the Department of Education.
This is why so many people are so mad about it, because they're just taking opportunity away from kids that don't have it. So kids of billionaires, they have it. They go to private schools. Everyone else, 90%, go to public schools. Don't take away their opportunity.
So let's stay on the facts.
Sorry,
no,
I'm really angry about this.
No, because this
I'm
is what
really
people
angry.
need to hear.
I taught kids in Clara Barton High School.
That's nice. I'm really angry about this. I'm really angry. No, you're constipated. You sound constipated. Try some Miralax. The Trump administration is rolling out a new app to replace the controversial CBP One app with a new replacement designed to facilitate the self-deportation of illegal immigrants. Love this story. The Department of Homeland Security is announcing the CBP Home app, which will launch with a self-deportation reporting feature for those in the country illegally. It replaces the CBP One app, which was expanded by the Biden administration to basically allow unfettered illegal immigration into this country. That's basically the point of the app. A one-stop shop to come into the United States illegally. Now that app is going to be replaced with the CBP Home app, a one-stop shop for deporting yourself. Now, this is an issue I've heard, that if you come into this country illegally, you can't get back out without a passport. So that creates somewhat of a bottleneck. So I'm hoping that they're allowing, because there are some illegals in this country who are trying to get out because they don't want to be deported, because if they get deported, they can never come back again. So they're trying to get out of the country, but they can't because they came in illegally and they can't get out without a passport. So I'm hoping this is going to help solve that problem a little bit. Border Czar Tom Homan responded to Congresswoman Jasmine Crockett, claiming that illegal immigration isn't actually a crime.
It's a crime to enter the country illegally on Title 8, United States Code 1325, and it's really pathetic that any member of Congress don't understand what the law says. They wrote the law. They enacted the law. It was signed by the president. It's a criminal violation to enter the country illegally. If you've entered it prior, it's a felony. So, I've been saying this for I don't know how long on your show, and I had to educate AOC years ago during the hearing that it's a crime to enter this country illegally, and we're going to enforce those laws.
Border Czar Tom Homan talking to Fox News, responding to Congresswoman Jasmine Crockett, who is, I think, factually the dumbest person in Congress, claiming that illegal immigration isn't a crime. Also, one more thing before we hit our first break here. President Trump announced that he's ordered the arrest of pro-Hamas agitators, the first arrest of a pro-Hamas agitator on college campuses. He said in a post on Truth Social, quote, "Following my previously signed executive orders, Immigration and Customs Enforcement proudly apprehended and detained Mahmoud Khalil, a radical foreign pro-Hamas student on the campus of Columbia University. It's a first arrest of many to come. We know there are more students at Columbia and other universities across the country who have engaged in pro-terrorist, anti-Semitic, anti-American activity, and the Trump administration will not tolerate it." I know the lefty view of this that I've seen is that this person apparently that was arrested by Immigration and Customs Enforcement for allegedly fomenting pro-Hamas rallies, that's pro-terrorist rallies on college campuses, a permanent resident, so this is maybe opening up a can of worms, but if you're demonstrating on behalf of terrorists, I kind of think you've given up your rights. All right, when we come back, you'll never guess. This dude that's back in the spotlight again, Jon Stewart, says the right thing but means the wrong thing. And Black Lives Matter Plaza, well, that's going bye-bye. That's all coming up next. This guy is back in the spotlight.
The last time I played a sport, I was 6 years old and I was on a soccer team, but I assigned myself as the nurse. So I sat with the Band-Aids. And so in the words of Wicked, I am not that girl. But a dear friend of mine, Skylar,
Dylan Mulvaney, the dude who thinks he is a woman, who documented his journey, his first 100 days, or what was it, first 365 days as a girl. Last year, the year before that, he's back in the spotlight again. I guess he's got some sort of book out or something like that. On The View yesterday, he later went on to claim on the issue of dudes competing against your daughters in sports, quote, "You're assuming that the women are weak and just can't do anything," end quote. Yes. Yes, that's the reason. We're all a bunch of rubes. We're all a bunch of misogynists. Because we don't want dudes competing against females in female athletics, you know? It just can't possibly be that we're talking about biological differences here. But yeah, they're trying to make Dylan Mulvaney a thing over there again as he appeared on The View yesterday. Well, a guy who's been a thing for quite a while is Jon Stewart, formerly of The Daily Show on Comedy Central. He was interviewed recently and discussed the issue of media in the country of Hungary. He really doesn't like it over there for whatever reason. Says they have an authoritarian system.
If you have a media machine that purposefully lies to its people to maintain a political fiction and get themselves power, that is the hallmark of an authoritarian system, not a democratic system.
Absolutely.
Well, if we were ever to get something like that in the United States, we would be horrified, furious, to know that there was an entire media organization designed to bend reality, to manipulate facts, to maintain power. It would, if I may, and I'm not trying to slam Hungary, it would never happen in the United States.
What you can't pick up on there, because this is audio, is that Jon Stewart is being very coy and sarcastic. He's talking about Fox News, of course. Now, if you're an honest observer and you'd never heard of Jon Stewart before, you'd think he was talking about the whole of the mainstream media. But no. No, what he's describing there is 180 degrees the inverse. He doesn't even pick up on the fact that a place like the New York Times, MSNBC, CBS, ABC, he doesn't even consider the fact that what he's articulating actually describes them to a T. What did we just get done talking about? I put these stories back to back on purpose. The View, which is still on, ABC? The View had a dude who feels pretty, who calls himself a woman. They had him on their program yesterday, and that's a Tuesday on The View. And then Jon Stewart says, oh boy, would you imagine? We'd never have anything like this in the United States. He's being very sarcastic and coy and condescending. We'd never have a media organization lie and distort and twist reality. Of course, he's trying to make you think he's talking about Fox News, but you know he's perfectly describing basically every other media outlet that the left owns. Well, Black Lives Matter Plaza in Washington, D.C. is not going to be long for this world. Work began Monday to transform Washington, D.C.'s Black Lives Matter Plaza. The quote-unquote evolution of the plaza was announced on Mayor Muriel Bowser's X account, adding that it's a part of D.C.'s America 250 mural project, where they're going to invite students and artists to create new murals across all 8 wards. Of course, the biggest feature of Black Lives Matter Plaza, the large yellow letters which spell out Black Lives Matter across Now, probably a block and a half of that, what they call plaza, that was first painted in the summer of 2020 during President Trump's first term following days of riots across the country in the aftermath of St. George Floyd's death at the knee of a Minneapolis police officer. All right, I'm going to present this story with no commentary whatsoever. Passengers aboard an Air India flight to Delhi endured a 10-hour trip to nowhere when their plane was forced to circle back to Chicago because most of the toilets became clogged and inoperable. Air India Flight 126 was making its way over Greenland on March 5th when 8 out of its 12 toilets broke down after passengers flushed bags and rags down the lavatories. The extended pee-pee dance, according to the New York Post, began nearly 5 hours into the 14-hour trip, forcing the Boeing 777 to head back to Chicago O'Hare's International Airport. I'm not going to say anything. And now here's this Pastor John MacArthur of Grace Community Church in California delivered a video message to the Shepherds Conference expressing gratitude for the ongoing support while acknowledging that he is on his last lap as he continues to recover after 7 weeks in the hospital. John MacArthur provided this message looking very, very frail and sounding frail as well. You can still hear his pastoral heart in these words of encouragement to different pastors gathered at that conference.
I want to say grace to you, all of you who are at the Shepherds Conference. For me, it's the highlight of the year, so you have to know my disappointment in coming to you through video. It really came down to being the only option because I haven't had such a speedy recovery as I hoped to have. I feel great. I just lost a lot of strength by being 7 weeks in the hospital. I mean, it's the hospital that can kill you. You can survive the illness. If you can survive the hospital, then you've won on every level. It took a toll on me physically, so I'm seeing physical therapists and trainers and trying to get back as soon as possible. I had the message on my heart, and I didn't want to lose the opportunity to give it to you. So we printed it up in a booklet. The good news is you don't have to listen to me, and you don't have to take notes because you're going to get the sermon in a booklet form. I just know how much I miss being at Shepherd's Conference. I love the fellowship. I love the preaching. I especially love the singing, every aspect of it. And the camaraderie and fellowship of meeting people is always a highlight. So thank you for your prayers. Thank you for your faithfulness and being a part of Shepherd's Conference. I'll be praying for you and asking the Lord to bless in an unusual way and sharpen all of us for whatever the Lord has for us in the future. I realize I'm on the last lap. That takes on a new meaning when you know you're on the short end of the candle. But I am all thanks and praise to God for everything He's allowed me to be a part of and everything He's accomplished by His Word in these years of ministry. Grace and peace to you from God our Father and the Lord Jesus Christ.
As the video message from Pastor John MacArthur, one of my favorite living preachers, pastors that I've ever had the pleasure of listening to. That video message provided to Shepherd's Conference at Grace Community Church. Very frail sounding and looking, John MacArthur, acknowledging that he is on his last lap, as he put it, and that he's doing his best, endeavoring to finish well. And I pray that he does to that end. When we come back, it'll be Air Analysis. The Memeifying of J.D. Vance could pay huge dividends in 2028. It's coming up next. And finally, Air Analysis, slightly acidic, mostly necessary. I'm not going to describe too many or really any of these, but if you've been on X or social media in recent days, No doubt you have seen several J.D. Vance memes. Just scrolling through the Twitter feed as I do right now, or the X feed, still call it Twitter. Basically, any version of any GIF or meme you have ever seen, people have transposed J.D. Vance's face onto the subject of those memes or GIFs. It's really hilarious, and I love it. Here's what's interesting, though. Both the left and the right love this meme. The right loves it because it's just funny. More on that in a little bit. The left loves it because they think they're making fun of him. They think they're bullying him. But that's not really what's happening here. Now, if you're over the age of like 45 or 50, I would posit that beyond just maybe shock value or that's kind of mildly amusing, you probably don't understand why this is so funny to the younger generations. And heck, I can't even explain. I think it's just a combination of irreverence and irony. That basically, they're putting J.D. Vance, superimposing his face onto like historical photographs. They're basically turning J.D. Vance into the millennial Forrest Gump. You know, a walking, talking legend, walking the earth before our eyes. Been everywhere, done everything. Now, J.D. Vance was already going to have somewhat good name ID at the end of these 4 years, just by virtue of the number of public engagements he's already done, and I don't see any signs of him slowing down. So he was already going to have pretty good name ID coming out of these 4 years of the second Trump administration. But what Memeifying J.D. Vance is doing, you're taking that name ID to a whole nother level. The volume of these memes, superimposing J.D. Vance's face onto basically every single historical photograph, every single current meme, every single current and, well-known legacy GIF. You're shooting his name ID into the stratosphere. And the left thinks that they're owning him. The right just thinks it's funny. But what's really happening here is that you're not just making him a hero. J.D. Vance, love him a lot. But as he is right now, on his own, he's flesh and blood. He can be ignored. He can be destroyed. But as a meme, he can be incorruptible and everlasting. Yes, I'm just ripping off Batman Begins, but you get what I'm saying. That's actually the power to the younger generations, I think, of memeifying somebody. You're not just a person, you're a meme. That has massive and broad implications politically, I think, for J.D. Vance going forward if this trend online continues. And certainly shows no signs of slowing down. That'll do it for Tuesday. Back at it again tomorrow. I'm Aaron McIntyre, and this is the AM Update.